Well, Mr. Mulroney, it's a real honor to get a chance to meet you today and to sit down and speak with you. Let's start by talking about President Trump. I've seen you described as a friend of his, as an acquaintance. How would you describe your relationship with the president?
Probably a combination of that, Ian, a friendly acquaintance. I've known him for 25 years or so. We met first in New York and were social friends there for a while. And then he bought a home in Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago, and so he came down there often with his children at Easter and Christmas and so on. And so our children became good friends, and I continued to see him all those years, mostly socially, various events, fundraising events for charities in Palm Beach. And then when he bought Mar-a-Lago and turned it into a club, then there were lots of events taking place there, and I would just see him in the normal course of attending various charitable events. So we've had a good relationship, and he's always been, as I say, I've only known him in these private settings at dinner or lunch or with other people as a gentleman. I've never seen anything beyond that. So I think a lot of the stuff we see now might be for effect.
You had said, though, when he became president, that sometimes politicians say things during a campaign that is intended just for the campaign, that they would become different once they got in power. I think a lot of us see President Trump now and worry that some of the impulsiveness and the raw language and that continues and it worries people. Should we be worried by that?
I don't think so. Mario Cuomo used to say that you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose. So he's confronted with the brutal realities of governing. And as you can see, a lot of the stuff that he's proposing is being shot down either by the House of Representatives, the Senate, or the court system. So I think he's frustrated in learning how difficult the governance of a great nation is. He wants to get his program implemented, and other people are saying no, and we're not going to do it. So he's unorthodox in any way. He's had no political experience. He doesn't. Some of the comments are somewhat startling because you wouldn't have heard those from any other president of the United States. But he is what he is. He won the primaries that way, and he continues to govern that way.
Some of his comments are about Canada, and some of those comments are about free trade, something that you fought and won an election on, very much part of your legacy as a Prime Minister of Canada. Does it at least bother you, but maybe even offend you, that he's taking on NAFTA and he basically says it's a bad deal?
Yeah. Well, he's wrong. Everybody knows he's wrong on that. The Rust Belt in particular in the United States has undergone very difficult times with factories closing and so on. Some of them moved to Mexico. But the real reason for the loss of employment has been the disruption and the transformation in the American economy towards technology and so on in Silicon Valley and elsewhere around the United States. But the American unemployment rate has dropped from about 9.6% down to 4%, the lowest in the world, in the industrialized world. So you wouldn't get there without great trading arrangements. NAFTA has been very good for Canada. It's been very, very good for the United States and Mexico. That's the way it should be. And I think when people examine it carefully, that's the conclusion that they're going to reach. I think it would be a significant error for anybody in the United States to cut off trading with their northern and southern partners. After all, we are responsible for 9 million jobs in the United States. 9 million. So you can imagine the obstacles that President Trump will encounter if he were to try and do what you say.
But you speak in such measured tones, you cite evidence, you have the experience you do. maybe those things don't matter right now, given the politics of the United States. Maybe it's about emotion and impulsiveness and making dairy farmers in Wisconsin or the timber industry in the Pacific Northwest happy.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, maturity prevails. Sure, it's fun. I'm sure it's fun to take a run at the President of the United States or President of Mexico or what have you. And some people, former President Fox from Mexico has gone on the record in the most abusive language possible against Mr. Trump. But that's not a very good idea. That's not a Canadian approach. I think we wait until we're at the bargaining table. We prepare. Look, the facts are on our side. There are not two ways to look at this. There's only one way, and that's the factual way. And when Mr. Trump and his people sit down and look at the objective data presented by the Canadians, and I think we're going to have a hell of a good delegation, by the way, from the federal government doing this for us. When they do that, I think they're going to be persuaded that, hey, this is not what we said it was. So let's get along.